So, hello, listeners. Hi, Ashby. I miss you.
Captain is a OU guru. Basically, it has a lot of info on the background of
Love
OU
it.
sports,
Hi,
but
hi, Captain.
concentrates in football. But that's his thing.
All right. Well, the captain, the TikTok I'm getting beat up on, people don't listen and they don't go read my bio, but I'm pretty well known in softball. And I'm talking about recruiting and playing multiple sports, which is a misnomer because they want you to cross train and use other muscles, but these people are coming for me. Well, Mahomes got recruited and he played multiple sports. Hello, people. Not talking about the one kid every 10 years. I'm talking about the 99 percenters that are trying to get recruited, but they're overusing and getting injuries, and then they don't have time to focus on their sport that's getting recruited. So that's a little TikTok I'm getting beat up on out there, but I can handle it. I got my opinion. And that's the thing. It's like,
Hey, if there's one thing I heard about you this weekend, it was that you stick to your guns,
that's
and that
right.
it was highly respected.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's hard to, but I'm willing to learn and I'm willing to
Absolutely.
listen. And that's the TikTok I put out today is that, listen, learn, seek information. Just because you've had one experience and it's different than what I'm sharing doesn't mean I'm wrong. I mean, people come at you with such hate. They're like, you're wrong. You suck. You should be banned on TikTok. I'm like, who are you, weirdos? Block? Yeah. Or I call them the Facebook dads that go up there. Well, I played minor league baseball in 1935, and that's not, you're like, dude, I can't even Google your name. You obviously don't have a relevant opinion. So, can't they just listen? You don't have to like it, but you don't have to be mean and hateful. So, hello, my friends out there coming on. Brent, how are you? One of my besties down in South Texas. You guys can all wave. Oh, there's Courtney. Hey, Courtney. Go ahead and on the bottom left, just click to be a speaker, and either me or Jackie will approve it. And ODM also. Welcome. Our speakers are in early tonight. Yes, it's going to be a good night. We always have a little pre-chat before we get going here. Awesome. All right.
Thank you both. Yep, both are up.
Excellent. Boy, right on time, too. We didn't have as many reservations, so hopefully we're getting a good audience tonight because it's going to be a powerful one. But I love it. Last week we struggled a little bit to get our space going. We had some speaker connection issues, but welcome and thanks, Brent, for the little message there. If you all don't know, it's my birthday today. You're having a birthday with me, so it's been one of those days.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Where I'm in shock how old I am. It's like, what? When did that happen? It's all good though. I don't feel it. That's for dang sure. And I'll be headed to the Mary Nutter this weekend to see some great softball. And I'm pretty sure we got the space recorded. I changed that earlier today, and I think we will go ahead and get started. What do you think, Jackie? Should we get started?
I think we're good to go.
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. I'm Sherry Naudine, one of the hosts here tonight for the conversation about why is testing important in recruiting. And as you all know, I am the owner of CSA, which is Collegiate Sports Advocate. We are clearly the number one softball recruiting company in the country. We get our numbers in. We do what we say we're going to do. We get them committed. We've got a couple of our committed kids on here tonight. Appreciate your attendance. And my lovely co-host, I'll let her introduce herself. Jackie.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Jackie Wins. I'm from New Jersey. I'm a former two-sport Division II athlete. Overall, I'm pretty invested in women's sports, but also clearly from my profile picture, a big OU fan, and within that community on Twitter. But overall, I've really gotten into the softball side of things, especially helping Sherry here on Monday nights. But huge fan and invested in recruiting overall.
Fabulous. Well, my next speaker, I'm so excited to announce I've known this family, the McAllister family, for many, many years. I won't say how many. And a funny story, I'll let Jackie tell it later about her meeting some of the other owners of your company. But KJ was on our call last week or 2 weeks ago and made the suggestion about talking about why testing is important in recruiting. So I'll let you introduce yourself and give some thought-provoking comments to what's coming up here tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We started ODM testing at the ask of college coaches. They came to us and asked about getting objective data because they go out and see these players at who are sister and starter company On Deck Softball is at their events and want to know objective data of how fast a kid is, how hard they're throwing, how hard that ball's come off their bat, all these things. So we developed a combine testing around the softball game. And that was in 2010. 2014, we launched ODM. And here in 2023, we've tested thousands and thousands of players across the country.
Fantastic. I know we see you out there. You've been around some of the club and events that I've been privileged to be part of. And before I introduce our next speaker, I want to give a little bit of a conversation about the fact we have a Power Five conference coach, Coach Courtney Martinez, coming on from Iowa State. But there are some NCAA rules that we have to follow. So we won't be able to allow you guys to be speakers tonight. You're still welcome to DM us or just fill out a questionnaire on Twitter. Both Jackie and I will manage. You can send it to my private DMs or hers or right here on our site, and we'll ask the questions. We really, really encourage our audience to be interactive. We would also love for you to share our space right now since it's going and we're not as deep on listeners as we usually are. So we'd love to really get this valuable information out. And we do record it so you can share it. We do get a really good listening audience after. So sometimes it's just not convenient at the time to listen. We do put them up on our Collegiate Sports Advocate website. We have a media page, and I'm also a podcaster on Anchor. I've got a year and a half worth of podcasts on different subjects, so we may have to come back. We do cross these over and put them on there, but we may come back and do a podcast on this subject also. So Courtney, oh my gosh, this is one of my favorite coaches. She knows it. I love me some Courtney Martinez from Iowa State. So Courtney, come tell us about your background and what you're doing here tonight.
Thanks for having me on, Sherry. Appreciate it. You're one of my favorite people to run into for sure. It's been a few years that I've gotten to work next to you. A little bit about my background. Originally from California. Started coaching at Cal State Bakersfield and then went to UNLV for 2 years. And then I've been now here at Iowa State for quite a few years now. Why I'm on here is KJ was reached out to me and asked, how would you feel about speaking on this? I'm pretty passionate about it. And so, yeah, just if we can bring some light and awareness to some families out there or just student athletes looking on what they can do to help put themselves in front of coaches, I think this could help for sure.
Fantastic. And I'll just give my little disclaimer about it. I've been in the sport for a long time and I've had coaches say, you don't need numbers, but I think the bigger and the wider we got and the more talent we got, the more important it was to get valuable and credible and quantifiable data that was, relevant. I always say from a relevant company. So on our website, on their individual pages, I don't let them go up there and put their pop time and their overhand speed. I actually make them show a screenshot of a relevant company. So I like good solid numbers. I like truthful numbers. And I like, it wasn't your high school coach or your junior high coach or your travel ball coach running numbers and, from a stopwatch putting it up there. So I love validated numbers. And that is why the topic here tonight. So I'll start it with why is testing important, KJ and Courtney. KJ, I'll let you go first, and then Courtney, as soon as you feel like he's got a pause, just come off mic and answer some more.
Okay, sounds good. Oh, one other question too. If there's any questions, can we maybe open up the chat, have Courtney open up the chat so then users can ask questions?
Sure, we've been very comfortable with them DMing us, and we'll ask them back out to you so that way everybody can stay on and Courtney doesn't need to leave. How about that? Does that work?
Works for me.
Awesome.
So I think, going back to 2010 when I got into it, uh, I had been around softball all my life with my sisters playing and getting to know the game, but also being a basketball player coming over. And one of the biggest things was, we all seen Major League and Trouble with the Curve. And it's two great examples where Major League, they take Wild Thing. He's throwing 102 miles an hour, but can't hit the strike. And Trouble with the Curve, where all they're focused on is statistics from the game and trying to pull up a number one draft pick, essentially. But the game of softball is great because everyone has a different role. Not everyone has to be the same type of player. And there's certain thresholds as we go, and the game gets a little bit faster and a little bit stronger, and players are a little bit more wary of each other because of film, and having to improve is big. And if players can understand where they need to be from a travel ball standpoint to then on the college field, it helps them develop as players. And then as a travel ball coach going to colleges can then understand what kind of player they're getting, maybe the athletic side of them, or maybe they're plateauing as an eighth grader or a freshman. And it helps them just develop and get stronger and more mature and develop to when they step on that field as a freshman, they know what they're getting.
Courtney, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with KJ. I think I'm really passionate about that there's a spot for everyone. I think data has helped us identify some strengths. I think it gets coaches to the field. It's not everything. As a coach, we all know our strengths, what we're really good at developing, what we aren't. If I see someone with 70 plus exit velo and, depending on some other things, maybe the program they're playing for may show up to their field, right? But that's not everything. I think it just gets the coaches there. And if there's any way to help student athletes get coaches to their games, I think this is a great way to do that. It's also a great starting point for us as coaches to monitor their growth and how they're developing, right? There's quite a few other things that we look at. This is just the beginning stages of identifying talent. But it's such low-hanging fruit for families and just for coaches to dive into, that I don't feel that a ton of people are taking advantage of. Even with as much as us in colleges are using it, I still don't see the wave of it falling necessarily into the travel ball scene. I think we're getting more into that with like ODM and CSE, but I don't know if parents or families realize how important it can be, because at some point in the recruiting process, we're all going to figure out what your numbers are. So it's highly unlikely that, we don't further our process and not know that about the student athlete we're bringing in. So I do think it's really, really important. And KJ was talking about development, not only for us and how we're going to develop student athletes, but, depending on what age the student athlete's at when they're getting their numbers is a good starting point about where they need to grow and where they need to get better, kind of benchmarks, and so it gives a family an idea of where they need to be helping their child get better. And so, yeah, again, I think it's some low-hanging fruit that not a ton of people are taking advantage of.
Excellent. Appreciate that, Coach. When is it too early? There's always been some language around, hey, don't test until you've got numbers that are good enough to show. Is it ever too early?
I don't believe so. I mean, I've tested 9-year-olds that's probably too early. But I think if you're a 12-year-old and you can get numbers and just kind of see where you are and get comfortable with the test, it helps. And I think if you looked and asked any coach, if they only test once and it's their best number, what are they following that up with? Are they going to get better? Are they going to get more athletic? Or did they plateau and that's the best they're going to be? If you're testing as a 13-year-old and you're setting these scores, but as a baseline, and then next year or 6 months from then, you're improving, even if it's 1, 2, 3 miles an hour on your overhand throwing velocity, that makes a big difference. So you're setting these baselines, you're getting stronger, you're getting a little bit more mature, and it's helping coaches see progressions that help you be a better athlete. It's a lot easier to teach things to a better athlete than someone that kind of plateaued as an athlete, maybe their junior year.
Excellent. Jackie, I see your hand up. And by the way, Courtney and KJ, if you ever have a comment and I'm not going in order, you're welcome to use the little emojis down there at the bottom. There's a hand raising like Jackie's doing. And audience, same thing. If you want to clap or give some support to the comments that are being made, there's some emojis down there. That little heart with the plus gives you some choices. So Jackie, would love to hear.
Yeah, we used to say, answer your W's. And what we meant by that was, know where you're at, where do you want to go, and where are you actually going? And so sometimes when we have these numbers and we use them as athletes, right, we have the ability to track that. Where otherwise you're just going to the gym, maybe you're feeling it strong, in practices and whatnot, some improvement, but you don't know. This allows some tangible evidence and tracking for you and coaches and whoever to really maximize and be more efficient with your training. And I think that that's super important, especially as a female athlete, as you're getting ready and going through your training. You want to make sure that it's beneficial and it's following your goal, whatever that is, and to ensure you get there.
That's
No question.
fantastic. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Courtney, did you
sorry.
get your hand up there? Oh, it's okay. We'll have
Oh,
Courtney
yeah.
and then go ahead and follow it up.
That's pretty cool. Also, that little emoji there. I think what to KJ, what he was saying about improvement and just tracking, as well as with Jackie, we all know the athlete, especially when we're recruiting really young. And to be honest, we're still identifying talent really young because for me, it's like I like to watch them for a long time and see that development piece. And now having numbers to go, not just be subjective with what my eyes are seeing. Of course, like, are they still moving well? Are they developing as an athlete? How are they growing? We can see that stuff. But to actually put like numbers to what we're seeing and validate that is another thing. And then we all know, like I said, when we were recruiting really young, those like early bloomers that were like, oh, that kid, committed in the 8th or 7th grade and then plateaued, right? And so by having the numbers, one, you're identifying the progress, but two, you see some of those late bloomers come on, and you have the numbers to justify it. So just to add on to what KJ was saying.
Yeah, and I think there's two sets of players. And I'll use two examples from this weekend at the USSSA Select 30 event. I had one player who's been to our event a couple times and put up monster numbers. Her goal is to continue putting up monster numbers and see if she can improve those. Now, there's another player out of Chicago who is a little raw, trying to figure out where she is as a player, took those ODM numbers in September, and 5 months later, she used those numbers to get better, and her numbers increased. She got better, and she's a better athlete because of it, because she got in the gym and she started working, because she saw what her weaknesses were and what her strengths were, and she could improve.
That's excellent. Something we've always said to our student athletes is get a baseline. Start and know where you're at, because so many of them go to speed and agility workshops. They go to arm care. They go to throwing training and catcher training. So they're working on their pop times. I'm like, it looks like y'all are going to dance class. You just go around in circles, do with no purpose. So get a baseline number, then improve on that number and come back and follow up so that one, the college coaches like Courtney here from Iowa State, and your testing professionals can see it and show it and give you some quality support on those numbers being validated. So the next question I have is, how often should they test, KJ?
As a company, we recommend every 6 months. I think anytime you put a goal out there, if you're testing in May and you go through summer ball, you go through off season between summer and fall, then you go through fall, then winter, and then you're circling back around to May testing. That's a long time where whatever goals you're setting, your body's changing. Maybe you're not focusing on it. You're taking those 6 months off and not focusing on hitting your goal of, if I want to throw 63 miles an hour and I'm at 59, I have to figure out how to gain those 4 miles an hour. And 6 months is a good time. It's in between each season. You can plan it out, and you can also use it as a recruiting tool. Our slogan is find your strength and build on it. So
Love it.
how do you
And
find your strength and then improve to where you're not like, okay, these are my numbers and this is what I'm set at as a player, but how do you get better?
that's great. And do you have people that you recommend? Like, I know I'm a big fan of the Wasserman throwing programs. Do you have affiliates, or do you have any kind of training programs that they can go through that you can say, hey, if you're really trying to get to 65, here's some things that we recommend, or some clinicians?
Wasserman's great. I think, as travel balls developed, a lot of them have their speed and agility, throwing, hitting. We don't want to ever step on someone's toes. So, we just recommend taking it to your speed and agility trainer, your hitting coach, and say, how do I get this number up or improve this score, lower my running time or agility time? So,
Excellent.
we
Now,
always
I
have
get
some, but
I was gonna say I get asked that a lot, and I keep saying I'm gonna put up a spreadsheet, but I don't know how I'm gonna manage it yet with the pitching coaches and the clinicians across the country. It's a big ask, but I do it for some of our local kids.
absolutely. I think as long as you're just improving, then maybe that coach is doing a good job. But if you're not seeing any progress, then maybe you need to ask how, or do I need to improve my mechanics, or what am I doing that is holding me back a little bit? Am I doing on the field and at practice what these players are doing in these colleges, or is my mechanics like completely different?
That's great. And we always recommend seeing college games. I saw a lot of kids at the North Texas Tracy Baird event this weekend. It was just so great to see these kids out there watching and really learning and seeing what it looks like. So, is there ever a time when it's not a good idea to doing testing, KJ or Coach Martin?
Real quick before moving to that, I agree. Wasserman is awesome. We've had him out before on campus. Continue to work with him, and he's great for throwing. But also, I would just challenge those people out there with your coaches. Like, if they're not measuring, how are you understanding if you're getting better? Because it's all then subjective, right? And so I think also blast is an easy, like you can have that at home, an easy way to kind of keep track of some stuff if you're getting, like to see if your progress on your own, if your instructor is not. But something we haven't really dove into yet, and I think we probably will a little bit later, is like also for the pitchers out there, how are your pitching coaches identifying what's your best pitch? How are they doing that? With their eyes, what they believe? Or are you getting tested to see that? And then how are you building pitches around that? And so I think with what ODM does and some other services, I think that's a huge piece, especially for pitchers. Um, it's not the best for me to throw that out there because other coaches go and look for that stuff, but I'm here for the student athlete, for as many people to find homes. So, but as far as when not to, this kind of goes with some people say, don't test if you're not ready. But let's say a kid shows up to camp and we're doing some stuff as well at camp, and they're a no on my sheet the first time they come. But the next time they come, they progress. Like, I'm never going to deny that. If I see that, then probably it's a yes, right? So I think the tricky part is timing and how young you are, because we all have years that we're looking for stuff. And sometimes it's never too late because things pop up within our roster where a need becomes a necessity. And so maybe you might be a late bloomer and you're showing up as a 23, and we all of a sudden have a need and your numbers are there and great, it works out. But I would say, age is kind of a dictator to that, of how old you are and the real reality, I guess you'd say, of where you're trying to go. So, not sure if that really answers that, but I don't avoid testing ever, honestly.
Excellent. And then I like your idea about the pictures. It may even be a whole other segment just for pictures on the different measurements and the different techniques and tools and the best pitches and worst pitches. Maybe we can make that another segment. So we'll write that down for another Twitter Live. So thanks, Coach Martinez. I appreciate it. And then we have a question coming in, and it is, how much weight do college coaches put on the 10, 20, and 40-yard numbers? Also, the 5, 10, and 5 times. Where can people find the top numbers to track their progress and the goals? Those are great. KJ or Courtney? Mm-hmm.
I'll take it, and then Courtney can talk about it as a college coach. I think each coach has their one man's treasure is another man's trash, right? So a coach might really want a super athletic player at a certain position, let's say shortstop, a high-end athlete at shortstop who has an incredible arm, great agility, great 40-yard dash, but is maybe willing to give up a little bit on her bat. Or maybe they're okay with a little bit of a slower player and they really want to focus on a heavier hitter. So I think you really need to have that, understand that not everyone's looking for all the same thing, but the game's getting a lot faster. If you're a slapper and you're running the 20-yard in 3.0, you're not going to be a slapper in college. You're going to be out by 3 steps. We have our averages, and I'll post it on the link so you can see it. But Power 5 slappers run the 20 in a 2.6. So, you see a lot of 2.6s pop up. It goes back to the stopwatches. These are real 2.6s, not the stopwatch 2.6. And as arms get stronger, you're going to have to be faster. So I would say that would be the big thing. Court?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think all of us coaches have our preferences. I think some of us are willing to give up, some offense for some defensive positions that really need to be defensive focused. Usually, primarily, that's your catcher and your shortstop. That's not everyone's philosophy. It has kind of been ours. And yes, KJ's absolutely right. Especially from the left-handed hitters out there, if you're sliding and you are not in a 2.6 area, I didn't say even maybe get away with 2.7, depending on how you handle your barrel. You're likely not going to be slapping in college or at the Power 5 level. So I think those numbers are really important as we talked about the development of athletes and looking at those numbers for parents to be realistic of where their daughters are at. But I do think, obviously, the better the athlete, the more attractive it is to any coach. But some of us, we're all like fishing in different pools too. Not all of us are going to get a fully packaged athlete that's just like 5-tool, great offense, great defense, and just moves elite. So you kind of have to pick your poison sometimes, what you need more, and we all identify our needs in our team. And so when we're out there looking, we're not just like looking, like we're looking for what we need. in that current time. So yeah, I mean, I definitely, if we have an athlete that can move well and does well in the 40, like, great. But if there's some other tools that are really vital to us, especially on offense, then, you know, we may give up some of that to have the other side. So
Great information. And KJ, you hit the nail on the head with what I know most of them are thinking. What are the numbers? What do I need to be at? And I'm glad to hear you breaking them down by conference and division, because I think it's important for those are goals, right? If you want to be a big D1 slapper, I mean, we've got one going into Oklahoma State. She's the real deal. When you watch her, you don't even need a measurement. You know what she does, but she also hits home runs. She can also hit for location. So, I mean, that's clearly a five-tool player. So, but she's gone through testing and, you know, had it validated and verified. And I think that's important. So, my next question are these numbers permanent, KJ? I see a lot on the baseball side. We deal a lot with the five tool and the perfect game guys. And some of them don't want to test until they're ready because they don't want that number to be locked in there forever.
You know, they don't have to be permanent, but I don't think it necessarily hurts you. I think if you're willing to accept what it is at that day and just work to get better, you know, you can't sign on to a college until you're a senior. If you're in eighth grade and you're pressing yourself about these are my numbers, I think that's where you kind of lose yourself, because why can't you just figure out a way to get better? If you're throwing at 54 and you're a shortstop, and you don't have to say this is who I am as a player and I don't want to have these numbers out there. Get better. Don't be bitter, get better. And just learn how to be better, how to get better, learn from it and improve, and maybe you'll figure it out. Maybe something will click. We had one player that she was a big, strong girl, and she threw at 56 miles an hour. Her brother helped her out, figured out why, took her to get some lessons, and I think 4 months later, she was throwing at 66 because she tweaked something in her throwing mechanics, learned how to use her levers, and threw it harder. So are you going to learn from it, or are you just going to say, oh, and hang your head? So I don't think it necessarily hurts you. I think it just helps you, and always be better for it if you're willing to take that challenge on.
Go ahead, Courtney.
sorry, Jackie, that's like same timing there. Yeah, and to what KJ was saying is, as a college coach, I mean, we want the player who's not afraid of the numbers, right? I mean, we deal with this with our athletes because our athletes, we test them often too. You know, it doesn't stop. Is what we're doing helping you? You know, we have to validate what we're doing as well. So we want the athlete that's not afraid of the numbers and frankly wants to figure out a way to get better. And so, you know, pushing it off if your hopes and dreams are to play at certain levels, I don't think is smart. And I think if you're avoiding it, you have to ask yourself why. So, as a college coach and just looking at athletes and what we're looking for, again, we are looking for the athlete that's going to continue to want to get better. And so that's a big red flag for us if you're trying to avoid getting numbers.
I was just
And
gonna
sorry,
piggyback.
I had some,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
sorry, Jackie, I had some technical difficulties, so I was off there for a second. A call waiting I couldn't get rid of, so I apologize for that.
No worries at all. I was just gonna, sort of what you were saying, Courtney. I look at it from the athlete point of view, who's in here, and whether it be the high schoolers, you know, that same age group that I teach. Some of it you may be like a little bit wide eyed, like, "Hey, what, how, when?" Oh gosh, numbers. But in the collegiate world, in all sports, numbers are now a thing, and how to maximize and be more efficient and track is a part of almost every sport now. So it is going to be something you start to hear more of. So while it may be fresh for some of you, don't let it be foreign. And have it be a part of something, or at least something that you start to look into, whether or not you can make it work, whether it be with somebody like ODM or whatnot. Have it be part of what you're starting to look forward to adding into your sort of portfolio. And also, it's not just necessarily about performance, right? I always sort of stress this to athletes, but numbers are also preparation, and not in the aspect of health, right? If you're preparing your body to go and want to perform in a collegiate atmosphere, that is a different world physically. And so to keep yourself on track with that goal and the W's that I talked about earlier, you need to ensure that you are preparing your body to avoid injury, and to at least have a foundation that's nice and solid, so that your coaches, when you get to the collegiate level, can work with you with a nice foundation, and know where to go from there. So not just preparation and overall, ability to play, but to stay healthy.
Thank you, Jackie. I appreciate you covering me on that call waiting too. Hey, I want to mention here and give a little prop to KJ and his family, because Jackie, you got to tell the story about how you ran into his family this weekend.
Oh gosh, this is a good one. So I went down. I like to go and support all different collegiate teams, not just the Sooners. So I went down and visited a good friend of mine, who's a big UGA fan. So I went there, saw the little tournament. There was Stanford there, and I was early to one of the games. And so there was a gentleman who was standing right there, on the side, and just sort of struck a conversation with me. So he saw my Sooner visor and just asked a couple questions, and we talked about Stanford. And he goes, I'm the coach's father. And I go, oh, okay. This is pretty cool. And so we start talking, things like that. And so I mentioned Sherry, and he's, oh, I know Sherry. And I'm like, what's happening? It's such a small world. And so then I text Sherry, and all of a sudden she's like, his son is on our show Monday. I go, what in the, oh man. So I told him, and he had a good chuckle, man. He was so, he's awesome. Your family's great. Your father's awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate they're actually listening to this right now. So
I love it. Well, I hope that if you're listening, man, it was great meeting you, and he's just a treasure. It was really an honor to meet him.
They're one of those what I call goat families in the sport, because the McAllister's Coach McAllister is the head coach at Stanford for our listeners here, and his mom and dad have been very involved in just the betterment of our sport for as many years as my family's been in it. So we appreciate all the contributions they've made. And Coach Martinez, any follow-up thoughts or questions about speed, size, and power? Because you did mention Blast. Are there other tools that you could recommend to the families about different ways they can improve their numbers so they can get better and keep testing?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some, I don't know if I'm technically allowed to promote anybody, but there is people out there. Again, I would just challenge you that whoever you're working with, are they doing measurements? Are they collecting data on you? How are you measuring your growth? And asking them either why they aren't, if they aren't. This is for another show. I'm going to, of course, hype up my guy, Nate Walker, for pitchers out there. I can't speak any, he's phenomenal. And if you haven't looked into that, I definitely would. It's a great way to kind of get an idea of who you are as a pitcher and moving forward, how you can get better. But yeah, I mean, again, there's nothing wrong with who you're going to now. I would just honestly ask them, can we do measurements if you're not doing it? And again, Blast is something that you can do on your own, and keep track of your progress with that, and maybe see if you can kind of integrate that with your instructors for the hitting side, Wasserman again for throwing. And there's some hitting instructors out there that I would definitely promote. I'm really big on movement, so that's a whole nother conversation that we can have, and how we are testing our athletes to see what type of movers they are and how they can move better, because that tends to be an issue with a lot of reasons of why they're struggling at the plate. So yeah.
Fantastic. So, KJ, can you tell us more about where to find your company, when you've got events coming up? How do our listeners connect with you?
Yeah, you can visit. I'll put in the comments our site, odmtesting.com. Uh, we're all over the place. After this, I'm going to Chicago and West Virginia, and I'm everywhere. And 95% of the time, it'll be me at those events doing it. So I'm always working with teams, always working with organizations. I'm here to come out to your facility, organizational day, whatever you guys need to help you guys collect data, understand it. We have a great relationship with all these coaches, and when they see the ODM name, they know what the testing is, they trust it, they recognize it, they know it's verified. It's not mom, dad, travel ball coach, whoever in the backyard collecting this data. Um, we'll always answer questions. I'll put my phone number, text message, email me, call me, whatever you want to do. Data is great. It's important. It helps, but you have to get the clean data. And I can't emphasize that enough. You have to get clean data so those coaches know
That's
going into
that's
it what
great.
they're getting. And it goes
Definitely.
back to the pop times and I'm glad that you brought this up. If you're going there, you're getting pop time with a stopwatch, you don't know. If you're 120 feet away from this person running, you don't know when you're crossing that line, when you're starting, and you can't do it by that. So all our tests are laser measured. It's the high end um, tools to collect it. So yeah.
Definitely reputable. And again, to our student athletes, we have them screenshot it and put it on the site so that it's validated and verifiable. And most people on the call know that I'm associated with Texas Glory, and we've got right now with CSA Collegiate Sports Advocate, we have 916 athletes nationwide. We've got 170 of them in college. And somebody asked me the question, should they be continuing to test in college? And I did not know how to answer that.
You mean once they actually go onto campus?
Yeah, they're in college right now, and they asked should they continue to be going to. It was actually your company name for testing, so I didn't want to answer that without knowing the correct answer.
I mean, we'll always take it. We go around testing and collecting data from colleges. Um, it just helps us. It helps the players understand baselines where they need to be. Um, I think the biggest thing is for committed kids to collect their data. So then, if a player is going to a school, they know that they're still working, that their money they're investing in that player is paying out. And when they step on campus, they're 100% ready to go. And I think for a while that was up in the air with these players of once they commit, the work's over. But that's
That
not the
still
case.
happens a little bit out there.
Absolutely. And there's a
Yeah,
lot of the organizations I work with now are every single player in their organization's testing whether they're committed or not. So then one, they're sending those coaches that they're committed to scores, and the players that are still uncommitted are getting those data as well and sending it out to the coaches that they want to be recruited by.
excellent.
So
Well, I
it's
want
up
to
to their coach
encourage.
if they
Yeah.
want.
I want to encourage some more questions while we're winding down here. We always get this at the end because, again, we can't bring you off mute, but we do want Coach Martinez to stay on and tell us more about how her season's going and some things maybe she's looking at and anything else she wants to add while everybody's asking some more questions. And then make sure you're friending all of the speakers here tonight so we can stay connected with you on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, I think should they still continue to test? That's touchy. I mean, a lot of us do not want our numbers out on our players just for reasons of we already have so much out there on our players from a protective way because, the transfer portal is a real thing. So for those players who unfortunately no longer find their home a fit, I think it's important if you're going to get in the transfer portal. I think it would only help you and add value for those people, looking in the portal. As far as we've had some companies come out and test our our team to help with an overall understanding of what our Power 5 numbers look like. What does a mid-major player look like? So we've done that before. But yeah, it does not hurt. We have a close relationship with KJ and the Alisters, so we're not trying to promote our committed players' numbers also, right? But it's great for us to see that, and so we love it when our players continue to test, just so we make sure that they're like progressing in the right way.
Excellent. Well, audience, we don't want to wind down if you guys have questions, so shoot us some questions, and happy to answer them for you, and make sure that you're connected to our speakers here today. And I'll talk a little bit about what's next week while we're still waiting for some questions. But next week kind of came out because I'm at these softball games for colleges, and I'm seeing all these parents out there that we've known for years, and now they're telling what they wish they would have known, and what they wish somebody would have told them, or what they wish they would have listened to. So we're going to invite, and we're welcome many of you, either committed or players in college, to come back on and say, wow, parents, I wish I would have in the 7th and 8th and 9th grade, sat down and zipped it a little bit. Or, they're going to give some real life stories of places it took them on different paths, and, leaving teams, and, teams folding, and all the things that happen, and just overall behavior of the families. I was so shocked. I was going to make a TikTok about it, and I got chicken because I keep getting annihilated on TikTok. But just some of the behavior and the criticism and the stands of the parents, complaining about their own team, and they don't know who they're sitting next to. We all know each other, as we mentioned earlier, and we all hear and understand what they're saying. And man, it's just not a good look. And, I just want to say, can't they just sit and enjoy the game? So we are definitely going to be inviting some families that are out there. And, I'm going to try to get some of my friends that have pretty famous kids to give you some words of wisdom and words from the wise. And hope you guys will enjoy that and bring some questions. So one last shot. Jackie, any thoughts or close up here?
Just overall, thank you both for coming, on and really explaining this, because I think it's valuable to put this in front of young athletes' eyes. I don't think we really talk about it, at least within the high school ranks, enough. I think it's all, how do you get to your visits? How do you, do social media, things like that, and things that we value. But we don't talk about the actual numbers and what they can do and how they should be used and tested. So I think that this is a great stepping stone to have and to finally put in front of them. So just overall, thank you.
That's fantastic. I love the idea. KJ, thanks for being a loyal listener and a contributor, because it's so valuable. And all of us are in here together doing everything we can to help student athletes get recruited and find their right home. And Coach Martinez, as she's called one of my favorites, she knows it. But appreciate you coming on. And it's funny how our friends all run in the same circle. And can't wait to see you out there this season. And loyal listeners, thank you. I see several of you that come on each week, and we sure appreciate it. And love to see you next weekend or next Monday. And then we'll also think about doing some of the pitcher and hitting conversations about the different hitting styles and the different pitching techniques and things like that. So that could be some of our next upcoming sessions. And if you have any other ideas of what you'd like, would love it. And if you want to go back and listen to what we did have, it's up on our collegiatesportsadvocate.com, up on our media tab. We have all our links from our past Twitter events, and then all of our podcasts. So thank you all again for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for having us on.
Oh, no, I'm just saying thank you, Sherry. Hopefully I'll see you this weekend in Palm Springs.
I'm going to be there. Yep.
Yeah, permitted the weather allows us all to play.
Hey, I'm
but
coming in the rain. I got my jacket.
I look forward to it. Thank you for having me on. Again, to the athletes out there, it's a win-win. Even if you aren't happy with the numbers you get, it gives you an idea of where you need to get better. And I do think it helps identify potential prospects for us coaches. So again, don't avoid it. And it is what it is, and it's the way our game's going. So the quicker you get onto it, I think the better off you'll be. Thanks again, Sherry.
Fantastic.
Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
speakers. Thank you, listeners. Have a great
Thank you,
day. Thank
Sherry.
you, my
Thank you for hosting.
co-host. Thank you. All right. Have a good night.
Of course.